There is something fascinating about the human mind. Two people can face the exact same challenge. One sees it as the end, while the other sees it as the beginning of something greater. What makes the difference? It isn't luck, talent, or even resources. It's mindset. Mindset is not just a way of thinking. It's the lens through which we interpret every event in our lives. It's the inner voice that tells us whether failure is final or whether it's just feedback. It's the quiet whisper that reminds us that every obstacle is also an opportunity. Let me share with you a simple truth: the future is not determined by what happens to us, but by how we respond to what happens. A closed mindset keeps us trapped in fear, convinced that we cannot change. But a growth mindset allows us to see beyond the immediate, to imagine possibilities that others cannot, and to act in ways that create a better tomorrow. History is filled with examples of ordinary people who achieved extraordinary things not because they had fewer problems, but because they believed in the possibility of growth. Their mindset gave them courage when circumstances gave them none. Their mindset helped them persevere when others gave up. If you believe you can, you will find the energy to try. If you believe you can't, no amount of opportunity will be enough. This is not about blind optimism. It is about choosing the perspective that fuels action instead of excuses. So how do we shape a mindset that builds our future? We begin by asking the right questions. Instead of why me, we ask, what can I learn? Instead of this is impossible, we ask, what's the first step? Instead of I failed, we say, I'm not done yet. Your mindset is the architect of your future. Every thought is like a blueprint, every belief like a foundation, every choice like a brick. Build it strong and your future will stand the test of storms. Build it weak and even small winds will knock it down. So as you move forward, remember this: your future isn't waiting for you to stumble upon it. It's waiting for you to create it. And the tool you'll need most in that journey is not money, not status, not talent. It's the mindset you carry with you every single day. 5 keynotes of the speech mindset is the lens that shapes how we interpret challenges and opportunities. The future is determined less by circumstances and more by our response to them. A growth mindset fuels courage, perseverance, and innovation. The questions we ask ourselves reframe failures into lessons and steps forward. Our mindset is the foundation upon which we build the future we desire. Mindset is the lens that shapes how we interpret challenges and opportunities. When we wake up in the morning and look at the world, we don't see reality as it is. We see reality through the filter of our beliefs, our expectations, and our interpretations. That filter is our mindset. Think about it: 2 people can experience the exact same situation, and yet their reactions can be completely opposite. One person may look at a setback and think, this is proof that I'm not good enough. Another person faced with the same setback may say, this is proof that I'm on the right track, because challenges mean growth is happening. What separates the two is not intelligence, luck, or resources, but the way their minds are trained to see. This is why mindset is often called the silent force shaping our future, because it decides not only how we respond to what happens, but how we even define what happens in the first place. Imagine a student who fails an exam. One perspective, shaped by a fixed mindset, is to see that failure as evidence of being unintelligent or incapable. Another perspective, shaped by a growth mindset, is to see it as a temporary setback and a chance to learn better strategies for the next attempt. The same event has occurred, but the meaning assigned to it is vastly different. The meaning is what matters, because meaning drives behavior. If a person interprets failure as the end, they will stop trying. If they interpret failure as a stepping stone, they will keep going until success becomes inevitable. That is the power of the lens through which we view life. Consider also how mindset influences our ability to recognize opportunities. Life constantly places opportunities in front of us, but if we are wearing a lens of fear or limitation, we don't see them. We only see risk, uncertainty, and reasons to hold back. On the other hand, when we wear a lens of curiosity and growth, the same circumstances look different. What others dismiss as a threat, we may see as a chance to stretch our abilities. What others fear as change, we may see as a possibility for transformation. In other words, mindset does not just shape how we handle problems, it also determines whether we even notice the possibilities standing right in front of us. This lens is especially powerful because it becomes habitual. The more we see the world a certain way, the more that perspective reinforces itself. If we constantly focus on obstacles, our brain will become wired to look for more obstacles. If we consistently look for solutions, our brain becomes better at identifying them. Neuroscience shows us that the brain is plastic, meaning it changes and adapts based on repeated thought patterns. So our mindset is not fixed, it is trained, and every day we are training it further by the way we interpret events around us. It's almost like polishing a pair of glasses. The clearer you make them, the better your vision becomes. If the lens is scratched, dirty, or broken, then no matter how beautiful the world outside is, it will always look distorted. Now, what does this mean for shaping our future? Quite simply, it means that our mindset today will decide the choices we make tomorrow. If our mindset is built on fear, we will avoid risks and miss opportunities. If it is built on self-belief and learning, we will step forward even when we feel uncertain. Over time, these small decisions compound. A single moment of giving up can close the door to progress, while a single moment of persistence can open a door to a breakthrough. And all of it begins with how we chose to interpret the challenge in the first place. It is also worth remembering that challenges are inevitable. No life is free from setbacks, failures, or disappointments. The difference between those who thrive and those who stagnate lies in the story they tell themselves about those experiences. The lens of mindset colors that story. Some people live their entire lives defined by what happened to them. Others live their lives defined by what they chose to do after those things happened. The mindset doesn't erase pain, struggle, or difficulty. It reframes them so they can serve as fuel instead of chains. We can see this in leaders, innovators, athletes, and even everyday people who achieve remarkable things. They don't succeed because they never face problems. They succeed because their mindset doesn't allow them to be defeated by those problems. Where others see a wall, they see a challenge to climb. Where others see rejection, they see redirection. Where others see impossibility, they see an invitation to discover a new way. That is the transformative power of the lens we choose to wear. So when we say mindset shapes how we interpret challenges and opportunities, we are really saying that mindset is the hidden architect of both resilience and vision. It builds the mental framework through which we endure struggles and through which we recognize the doors waiting to be opened. Every thought, every belief, every interpretation adds another layer to that lens. And that lens, in turn, is silently but powerfully shaping the path of our future. The future is determined less by circumstances and more by our response to them. Life has a way of throwing challenges at us that we cannot predict, control, or prepare for in advance. Circumstances may appear sudden, overwhelming, or even unfair, and it is easy to believe that they hold all the power. But when we look closely, what truly defines the direction of our lives is not the circumstance itself, but the way we choose to respond. The same storm can destroy one ship and strengthen the resolve of another. The difference lies not in the storm, but in how the captain navigates it. Think about two people who lose their jobs unexpectedly. One might collapse under the weight of despair, deciding that life is cruel and unfair, convincing themselves they are powerless. The other, facing the exact same situation, might see it as a turning point, a moment to explore new skills, start a venture, or redirect their career. The event is identical, but the outcomes diverge entirely because of the choice of response. This is the essence of human agency. We may not be able to control what happens, but we always control how we meet it. That choice, repeated over time, writes the story of our future. It is natural to think that circumstances define us because circumstances are visible and tangible. They appear to have the upper hand. But history shows us that some of the greatest breakthroughs, the most inspiring stories, and the most resilient lives are born not from ideal circumstance, but from difficult ones. People who changed the world often began with fewer resources, greater obstacles, and harsher environments than others. What they had, however, was the capacity to respond differently. They refused to let external events dictate the narrative of their lives. Instead, they wrote their own chapters by how they reacted, adapted, and persevered. The truth is, life will always present us with both favorable and unfavorable circumstances. Opportunities and obstacles coexist. If we rely solely on conditions being perfect before we move forward, we will wait forever. Circumstances may delay us, they may challenge us, but they do not have the power to stop us unless we hand them that power. When our response is driven by determination and vision, we transform circumstances into stepping stones. When our response is shaped by fear and resignation, we turn those same circumstances into walls that trap us. The deciding factor lies within us, not outside. Even in small everyday situations, this principle holds true. A traffic jam can ruin one person's mood for the entire day, while another person might use that time to listen to a podcast, reflect, or practice patience. A harsh word from a colleague may spiral one person into resentment, while another chooses to see it as a reflection of that colleague's stress rather than their own worth. These responses may seem minor in the moment, but they accumulate. Every reaction is a brick in the foundation of the future we are building. Over time, the future that looks lucky or unlucky is often simply the result of repeated patterns of response. This principle also explains why resilience is one of the most powerful human qualities. Resilience is not the absence of hardship, but the ability to meet hardship with a constructive response. It is the refusal to surrender control of our future to uncontrollable events. When we cultivate resilience, we learn to treat every circumstance as raw material. Some may be more difficult to work with than others, but all can be shaped into something meaningful if our response is deliberate. This mindset shifts us from victims of circumstance to creators of destiny. We see this clearly in times of crisis. Natural disasters, personal tragedies, or sudden failures can shake us deeply. Yet within those moments, we often see examples of people rising above, finding strength they did not know they had, and discovering opportunities to grow, to unite, or to lead. Circumstances may break some, but they also reveal others who choose to respond in ways that inspire and uplift. Their futures are not defined by what happened to them, but by what they chose to do after it happened. At its core, the idea that our response matters more than circumstances is empowering. It tells us that our future is not hostage to luck, timing, or external forces. Those factors may influence the journey, but they do not dictate the destination. Our reactions, our ability to choose courage over fear, persistence over surrender, and vision over despair become the levers that move us forward. The question is never just what happened, but always what did I do with what happened? That answer is the true author of our future. A growth mindset fuels courage, perseverance, and innovation. When people believe that their abilities and intelligence can be developed, they approach challenges with a completely different energy. Instead of being paralyzed by fear of failure, they see setbacks as temporary hurdles, not permanent verdicts. This belief fuels courage because it gives us permission to step into the unknown. If we think our abilities are fixed, every risk feels like a test that could expose our limits. But if we believe we can grow, then risks are simply opportunities to expand those limits. That shift in thinking is what allows individuals to act boldly, to move forward even when the outcome is uncertain, and to find strength in situations where others hesitate. Courage, in this sense, is not the absence of fear. It is the willingness to move forward despite it, driven by the conviction that growth is possible. A growth mindset creates this conviction. It whispers that fear is not a stop sign, but a signal that we are moving into new territory, a place where learning will happen. People who embody this way of thinking embrace difficult conversations, take on projects outside their comfort zones, and pursue goals that once seemed out of reach. They don't wait for conditions to feel safe. They take action because they trust in their ability to adapt, learn, and improve along the way. This same mindset is also the root of perseverance. When challenges stretch longer than expected or when setbacks pile up, it is easy to quit if we believe that effort will not change the outcome. But a growth mindset sees effort as meaningful. It tells us that persistence is not wasted energy, but an investment. Every attempt, whether successful or not, is a step toward progress. This belief sustains us in the long run because it prevents us from being discouraged by temporary results. Instead of asking, why is this so hard? People with a growth mindset ask, what am I learning through this struggle? That perspective transforms difficulty into a teacher rather than an enemy. And that is what keeps people moving forward when others give up. Think of any great achievement in history, and behind it you will find perseverance shaped by this mindset. Scientific discoveries, technological breakthroughs, artistic masterpieces, all of them were born not from smooth paths, but from countless trials, failures, and revisions. What made the difference was not simply talent, but the belief that failure was a stepping stone, not an endpoint. This is what allows someone to try again and again when others walk away. It is the quiet engine of perseverance, and it is powered by the conviction that growth is always possible. Beyond courage and perseverance, a growth mindset also fuels innovation. Innovation is, at its core, the willingness to explore new ideas, to experiment, and to risk being wrong. If someone fears mistakes, they avoid experimentation. If they view failure as proof of inadequacy, they stick to what is safe and familiar. But when failure is redefined as feedback, suddenly experimentation becomes exciting. The fear of being wrong is replaced with curiosity about what might work. This openness is what sparks creative thinking and leads to breakthroughs. Innovation thrives not in environments of certainty, but in environments where learning is valued more than perfection. Organizations, teams, and individuals that embrace this mindset create cultures of possibility. Instead of punishing mistakes, they analyze them. Instead of resisting change, they explore it. Instead of asking, what if this doesn't work, they ask, what can we discover if we try? That shift in collective perspective unlocks progress that fear-based thinking could never achieve. Many of the advances we take for granted today, from medical treatments to technology to social reforms, were once considered impossible. They became possible because someone dared to persist, to experiment, and to innovate under the guidance of a growth mindset. This mindset also reshapes how we view competition and collaboration. When people operate with a fixed mindset, they often see others' success as a threat, as if one person's achievement diminishes their own worth. But with a growth mindset, success is not a limited resource. Others' achievements can serve as inspiration, proof of what is possible, and motivation to grow further. This perspective fuels collaboration because people are no longer guarding their egos, but are open to learning from others, sharing knowledge, and creating together. That spirit of collective innovation can only exist when growth is prioritized over judgment. Ultimately, courage, perseverance, and innovation are not separate traits. They are interconnected expressions of the same belief that growth is possible. Courage allows us to begin even when we feel unready. Perseverance keeps us moving when the road gets difficult. Innovation allows us to explore new paths when the old ones lead to dead ends. And all three are sustained by the mindset that mistakes are not failures but lessons, that effort is not wasted but essential, and that limits are not fixed but flexible. With this mindset, the impossible begins to look achievable, and the future begins to open in ways we could never have imagined if we had stayed confined by fear or resignation. The questions we ask ourselves reframe failures into lessons and steps forward. Every human being experiences moments of disappointment, rejection, or loss. These moments by themselves do not define us. What defines us is the inner dialogue that follows. When something goes wrong, the natural instinct is often to ask, why me? Or what did I do to deserve this? But questions like these trap us in helplessness. They frame us as victims of circumstance, powerless and without control. A different set of questions, however, has the power to transform the very same experience into a source of growth. When we ask, what can I learn from this? Or how can the situation make me stronger? We shift the focus from what we cannot control to what we can. Those questions create movement. They open a door that failure tried to close. The human brain is wired to search for answers. The quality of our questions determines the quality of those answers. Ask a negative question, and the mind will supply a negative response. Ask a constructive question, and the mind will search for constructive solutions. When someone faces rejection from a job interview, asking what's wrong with me will generate answers that reinforce doubt and inadequacy. But asking what skills can I improve before the next interview directs attention to growth and progress. The failure itself remains the same, but the outcome of that failure changes entirely depending on the question asked. This principle is not only powerful on an individual level, but also universal. History is filled with examples of innovators, leaders, and change makers who turned failure into progress by asking better questions. When an experiment did not work, they did not stop at why didn't it succeed, but went further to ask, what does this result teach me about what might work? That subtle reframe kept them curious instead of defeated. Curiosity is what transforms a closed door into a window. The act of asking a question keeps the mind open, and an open mind is far more likely to find new paths forward. Even in personal struggles, the same truth applies. When relationships break down, careers stall, or dreams face setbacks, the initial pain can be overwhelming. Yet the difference between staying stuck and moving forward often lies in whether we continue asking questions. What can I do differently next time? Is a question that prevents bitterness from taking root. How can I grow from this experience? Is a question that extracts wisdom from pain. Over time, these questions create resilience. They build a mindset that treats failure not as an endpoint, but as a turning point, a necessary pause before redirection. The language of our inner dialogue matters deeply. When we allow negative questions to dominate, they become self-fulfilling prophecies. A student who repeatedly asks, why am I always failing, will start to believe they are incapable, and this belief will influence their behavior. But if the same student asks, what strategies are successful people using that I haven't tried yet, their brain shifts into problem-solving mode. Instead of reinforcing defeat, the question plants seeds of possibility. It is not the failure that limits us, but the interpretation we attach to it. And our interpretation is shaped by the questions we choose to ask. This is why some people bounce back quickly from setbacks, while others stay trapped. The ones who recover have trained themselves to ask better questions. They don't waste energy replaying the event endlessly or drowning in self-pity. Instead, they treat every failure as data. What worked? What didn't? What's the next step? These simple but powerful questions strip failure of its emotional sting and transform it into useful feedback. In this way, failure becomes less of a burden and more of a teacher. Over time, this practice creates a cycle of continuous growth. Every setback generates a new set of questions. Every question generates new insights. Every insight creates a new action. And every action leads to progress, even if it is incremental. Eventually, the accumulation of lessons learned through these questions becomes the foundation for future success. The same person who once saw failure as devastating begins to see it as a necessary ingredient of growth. It is also important to note that the questions we ask shape not just our own lives, but the lives of those around us. Leaders, parents, teachers, and mentors who model this habit encourage others to reframe failure as well. Instead of criticizing mistakes, they ask, what did we learn? Instead of demanding perfection, they ask, what can we try differently next time? These questions create cultures of growth where people feel safe to experiment, to stumble, and to rise again stronger. By changing the questions, we change the environment, and by changing the environment, we multiply the impact of resilience and innovation. Failure is inevitable, but defeat is optional. The choice is made in the space between the event and the response, and that space is filled with questions. Do we ask questions that chain us to the past, or do we ask questions that pull us toward the future? The difference between the two determines whether we stagnate or evolve. The questions we ask ourselves hold the quiet power to turn any failure into a stepping stone, a lesson, and ultimately a step forward. Our mindset is the foundation upon which we build the future we desire. Every choice, every action, every reaction is rooted in the beliefs and attitudes we carry within us. Just as no building can stand tall without a solid base, no life can flourish without the stability of a healthy mindset. Talent, resources, and opportunities may provide tools, but if the foundation is weak, the structure will eventually collapse under pressure. The way we think and the beliefs we hold and the perspective we adopt form the groundwork that supports or undermines everything else. A strong mindset is like solid concrete. It absorbs pressure, distributes weight, and provides security for whatever is built on top of it. Life will inevitably bring storms in the form of failures, losses, and disappointments. These storms test the strength of the foundation. If our mindset is brittle and fragile, we crumble under the weight of challenges. But if our mindset is strong, we may bend, we may shake, but we do not break. We endure because the foundation holds. And endurance is what allows us to continue building no matter how many times we must start over. When we talk about mindset as the foundation of the future, we are really talking about the silent force shaping our decisions. A person with a mindset of scarcity may avoid risk, play small, and cling to what they already have. As a result, their future narrows. A person with a mindset of abundance, on the other hand, sees possibilities, takes chances, and embraces change. Their future expands. Both people live in the same world, But their futures diverge because the foundations they build upon are different. The stronger and more empowering the mindset, the greater the structure of life it can support. This foundation also influences how we handle success. Without the right mindset, success can be fleeting or even destructive. People may achieve material wealth or recognition, but if their mindset is unstable, fear, insecurity, or arrogance can erode everything they've built. On the other hand, when success is grounded in a healthy mindset, it becomes sustainable. It is not seen as the end of the journey, but as a step toward greater contribution and growth. In this way, mindset does not only prepare us for hardship, but also equips us to carry success responsibly. The foundation of mindset is also what determines how we set and pursue goals. Goals without the right mindset are like blueprints without a stable ground to build upon. You can design something magnificent, but it will not stand unless the base is ready to support it. People often focus on strategies, tools, or resources, yet overlook the importance of the mindset that must hold it all together. Without belief in growth, perseverance, and learning, even the best opportunities are wasted. With the right mindset, however, even modest opportunities can be transformed into extraordinary outcomes. Mindset also has a multiplying effect across time. Each choice we make is like a brick we place upon the foundation. With a weak mindset, we may place bricks carelessly, creating cracks and instability. Over time, the structure leans, falters, and falls apart. With a strong mindset, we place each brick with care, intention, and vision. The result is a structure that grows taller, stronger, and more resilient with each passing year. Our future is not a single grand decision, but the accumulation of many small ones, and each of those decisions rests on the foundation of how we think. This foundation is not built overnight. Just as constructing a strong building requires time, effort, and repeated reinforcement, so does developing a resilient mindset. Every time we reframe failure, every time we choose persistence over giving up, every time we embrace change instead of resisting it, we pour another layer of strength into the foundation. Over time, these layers create stability so deep that even the greatest challenges cannot shake it. This process is lifelong, but it is also empowering because it means we always have the ability to strengthen our future by strengthening our mindset. Perhaps the most powerful truth about mindset as a foundation is that it precedes external change. Many people wait for circumstances to improve before they change how they think. They believe a better job, more money, or different relationships will transform their lives. But the reverse is true. Transforming our mindset first is what attracts better circumstances. Just as a builder must prepare the ground before construction can begin, we must prepare our minds before the future we desire can take shape. Without that preparation, even if opportunity arrives, we may not have the stability to seize it fully. In the end, every future is built twice, once in the mind and once in reality. The blueprint of thought becomes the architecture of action. If the mental foundation is weak, the structure cannot rise. If the mental foundation is strong, there is no limit to how high it can go. Our mindset is not just a part of the process. It is the very ground upon which everything else depends. When we choose to build that foundation with strength, clarity, and resilience, we give ourselves the ability to create a future that not only stands firm, but also inspires others to build futures of their own. As we reflect on the power of mindset, one truth becomes undeniable: our thoughts, beliefs, and perspectives are not passive reflections of life. They are the architects of it. The lens through which we view challenges shapes our ability to respond. Our responses, in turn, define the trajectory of our future. Courage, perseverance, and innovation flow from a mindset that embraces growth. While the questions we ask ourselves transform failure into lessons and stepping stones, every choice, every thought, every moment of deliberate reflection strengthens the foundation upon which our future is built. Your mindset is not a small part of life. It is the ground beneath every step you take. It determines how high you rise, how resilient you remain in the face of adversity, and how open you are to opportunity. Life will inevitably present obstacles, uncertainties, and setbacks, but those who succeed are not those who avoid challenges. They are those who see challenges through the lens of possibility, who respond with purpose, and who persist despite difficulty. Remember that the future is not a distant event waiting to happen. It is a creation shaped moment by the mindset you cultivate today. By choosing growth over fear, learning over defeat, and action over inaction, you become the author of a life that reflects not the circumstances you face, but the strength, clarity, and vision of your own mind. The power to shape your future lies within you, and it begins with the way you think. Build that mindset strong, and there is no limit to what you can achieve.